Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Judith Thompson. I am the Dean of Herbal Medicine here at ACHS, and I just want to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And while we're waiting for folks to filter in, just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. And you may have that your line has been muted, and we are recording today's webinar, and so this helps to ensure excellent sound quality for everyone who's viewing the recording. Now, if you have any questions during the presentation, please don't be shy. Put them in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you during the webinar. So we will have our presenter going through her slides, and then we'll go through questions at the end. So one thing to note about the chat box, there is a little drop down that determines who you send your chats to. So one option is the host and panelists, and the other is everyone. So make sure that your drop down says everyone so the entire audience can see your chats. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker for today. She is Denise Cusack. She's a clinical herbalist, a certified aromatherapist, and the executive director and program director of Herbalists Without Borders, where she has volunteered since 2015. She also leads the U.S. Donation Network and serves as editor of Without Borders magazine and develops educational opportunities, clinical experience, and community-based resources to support herbalists working in their communities. Denise lives at Holy Rooted Farm, a United Plant Savers botanical sanctuary in south central Wisconsin, where she grows herbs for Herbalists Without Borders and works to preserve endangered plant species. It is such a pleasure to have you here with us today, Denise. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your knowledge. And it looks like we've got folks from all over the world. I've got one from, I'm seeing a student from
Wonderful.
Japan and Las Vegas, and so all over the country. And I think this is just an area where people have lots of interest and questions. And so
Mhm.
I am going to hand the microphone off to you.
Yes. Well, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Um, I am going to share my screen here quick first, and then I can, I know you've probably all heard of Herbalists Without Borders, but today I'm going to talk a little bit about how we work in communities to help empower people who are working where they are, because all of us live where there are people who are in need. And while you have like a romanticized version, I'm sure, of like, traveling to go help other communities, often the very best place to start is where we live and with our own communities. And to be prepared and to be able to respond if something ever happens is really important as well. And so I'm going to talk today about how we support health justice initiatives through our direct community engagement in all different types of ways. I love this quote just because it is something that I've always had in my mind. It was something that I read when I was a lot younger. And I really think that that's important because a lot of people want to help, but they're not sure where to start or how to engage or how to get active in their communities. And to me, it's really just about kind of setting our mindset that we want to make a difference. We want to make an impact. And it doesn't have to be every moment, every waking moment. But in looking at that, this kind of being like that quote, how do you want to make an impact? What is it that you can do where you are? And I like ask myself that question every day. I know Judith gave me an excellent introduction, but I did just want to kind of give you a little bit of a background in that, as a clinical herbalist, I also volunteered with the Veterans Resiliency Holistic Clinic with Herbalists Without Borders for many years. I do a lot of the lead disaster response and relief. So I'm the person who often reaches out. I keep my, ears to the ground. I see what's happening where, and I reach out to folks who are members when something happens in their region to check in on people. Are they okay? Are they going to respond? A lot of that then leads me to kind of understanding where people are coming from in different parts of the world, in different communities, in different regions, and also how, that also kind of taps me into what it is that people are looking to learn, what people are looking to connect to, and what the priorities are for different regions. And I think that that's really important, is to really be able to be in touch. And for you and your community, being in touch might look different than someone in another area. So often being a part of the community is the first step. The mission of Herbalists Without Borders is that we're a membership-based 501(c)(3) that is really devoted to providing holistic care to communities in need, whether it's natural disasters, violent conflicts, war, poverty, trauma, and other barriers to health and wellness. We have a lot of different programs, which I love talking about. Um, but the main, like at a glance, of Herbalists Without Borders is that we are a global model. We have people, and it changes, constantly, but we have people from all around the world who are members, as well as who have started chapters, clinics, and projects. We also have other partner allies type of organizations that we've partnered with around the world that we do educational programming or different types of outreach with as well. And so with the member and chapter-based network, it's really about kind of connecting people who are working in their communities to each other, because of course, all of us, work better if we are inspired and engaged and have ideas and support from other people. But it also allows us to tap into additional resources so none of us are reinventing the wheel. And we have the ability to access things that worked for other people, so that, my philosophy is the less time we spend doing all of the setup and, doing the nitty gritty, the more time we have to serve our actual communities. And whether that's, and all of us have careers and, work and families and things that we're doing. And the important thing is that the more time we have to dedicate to our communities, even if all we have is one day a week or one day a month or one weekend, every quarter, whatever it is that we dedicate to serving our communities, it's better if we have support so we don't feel alone. It's better if we have resources so that we can connect and engage in ways that have been successful for other people, so we have more likelihood of success. And so that we have a network of people that we can bounce ideas off of and share and exchange with. And some of the, I'm always amazed at different ideas people have and how we can all implement different ideas in different ways in our communities and make things even better. And a lot of what we do is based on mutual aid. We're not a gigantic organization, but we're mighty, is what I like to say. We're all volunteer members around the whole world working in our communities. And I like the term mutual aid because it signifies that it's a voluntary, reciprocal based system. And it's often outside of formal institutions. We are more grassroots. We are about being community based. And a lot of us do partner with like unhoused shelters or local food pantries or do teach classes at the library or things like that. But it often is very much, like a down to the ground, grassroots, finding ways to engage in our communities to the people who need us the most. And the way that contrasts in a bit with traditional models is that we emphasize horizontal collaboration by being in the community, working with your community. We're not doing that white savior model, where we're descending upon communities and then serving and then leaving. And that can be a challenge. We often see, like in disasters, for example, that, after a disaster or something's in the news, a lot of people go to areas from outside, but then they have to leave. And when they leave is often when the Herbalists Without Borders folks are really starting to dig in, because they sometimes are there 6 months, a year, 3 years, recovery for certain types of, like fires or hurricanes. That could be years and years of support. And often, if you respond immediately, a lot of people are evacuated and do need support. I'm not saying they don't, but when they come back and start cleaning up their home or start trying to find ways to rebuild, that's when we see a lot of those really critical high need things that people need. And if you're in that community and a part of that, then you have the ability to pivot, see what's needed, and respond to that. So, that kind of horizontal approach means that we're lean and, they call it, the agile kind of model. But it means that we're able to really target the needs of our community, and respond to them in a way that works for each individual group and who we're serving. And so the principles of mutual aid really are about, if you look at it as reciprocity or as about a collaborative relationship instead of giving and, only giving and it's a charity, it kind of shifts away from that transactional system and becomes about us caring for each other and building community and building these models and community collaborations with organizations or with individuals that really can make a long-term difference. And there's nothing wrong with some of the larger organizations, but if we're able to really be a part of the community, connect with people and engage, a lot of underserved communities, a big barrier to access is access in and of itself, and cost, but also trust. If we're working with unhoused communities, if we're working with migrant or refugees or different communities, often we need to develop trust, and we're more likely to be able to build relationships and establish a more trusting, collaborative environment if we are working in our own communities in this way. And trust is so important in actually providing care, and having people be honest with us. If you're working with addicts or if you're working with, different groups or people struggling with mental health issues, trust is so important to get a clear picture and work with people. And so what we do is, we have different models. It's all going to be grassroots and community driven. We look to local coordinators working in their own communities. And some coordinators, like I said, it may be quarterly or monthly or something that people do something. We even have folks who work on, they live on an army base. And so they do education and events right where they live on base. We have folks who work with different unhoused communities and already work within a shelter environment or system, and that's where they then do that extra step of getting holistic wellness and herbal health and support to people. And we look to programs to actually empower people to become engaged in their own health and wellness, because often, all of the things that I've mentioned so far are people who've been impacted by trauma. If you're unhoused, if you're a refugee, if you've had a disaster, if you are struggling with putting food on the table for your kids, you lost your job, different things. If any of those things, trauma is a part of what we do in this work. And if we're looking to that, a Western medicine model, often just because they don't have access to time, time is a privilege that often doctors don't have. And they do amazing work, but often they don't have time. And that's what we do have. And our ability to be able to sit and listen, to respond, to take the time we need to build these relationships and build trust in our communities. It means also that we don't want to reproduce the model of we're going to give you something and you just take it, don't ask questions. We want people to say, and we know people are more successful if they participate in their own health and wellness. We want people to say, oh, I know, I'm like this example of the label, in labeling something that's both in English and Spanish, where that way people actually know what is in what we're giving them rather than just saying, here, just take this. Again, that's a way of empowering people to understand what it is that they're taking, connect with what it is that they're doing, and see that they're taking care of themselves. And I've seen, even with like unhoused folks, for example, just the act of self-care can be transformational and completely like life affirming for people. And the fact that we trust them to take care of themselves too, and know, you're capable of self-care. You're worth it. We think you're worth it, so you should think you're worth it too. Those types of things. While it may seem like a small part of the work we do, really that is about empowerment. So our empowerment, we do have free clinics, which I will talk about, but a lot of what empowerment comes down to is also about outreach and education. Even community gardens can become a place for community to gather, for people to learn about, food security, about seed saving, about growing medicinal plants, what all ages too. You can have, like I designed a hospice garden for end of life folks, and the people who really ended up needing the garden and being impacted by it were the families who are there to visit their family members who are in, at end of life support. And then, really feeling that they had an emotional connection to these aromatic plants that made them feel better. And some of this comes down to, being able to get supplies to folks. And so a lot of what we also work to do is to connect to technical assistance, seed grants, education, make and take, e-guides, all of these things. And I'll kind of tell you about all the bits as we go, but really about providing educational support for people to learn and trust them to learn about what plants are in their own area that you could harvest, what is herbalism, and what type of herbs can you take that will help support your own health needs that you've found. That is a big way of gaining trust in the community too, getting to know people and having people get to know you, so that if you do have other types of events where, let's say you then have a free clinic in the future, that people then already know you, you've established a relationship, and people are more likely to be able to feel comfortable working with you. And also, if we're enhancing skills and knowledge, we're getting people more prepared for disasters. Gardens can be a part of preparation. Creating community apothecaries can be a part of, preparation. And all of that builds more resilient communities that are more able to adapt to change and more able to adapt if a disaster does strike. That's why I like make and takes too, because bringing community into their own, making something for themselves and then using it. People love that and get really excited and passionate about it. And that means that they're more likely to use something than us just saying, here, take 3 droppers a day. Um, and it is about engagement, and empowerment is engagement. With free clinics, it's about serving maybe underserved communities, serving the community that we're a part of, serving people who don't have otherwise have access. A lot of herbal medicine can be expensive for folks if they're looking at it from the store-bought perspective. And as we know, some certain types of supplements may not be as high quality as others. And getting access to really good quality products can make a big difference in how effective something is for someone. So doing free clinics where we can provide people with herbal support, looking at community engagement and relationship building, looking at resilience and disaster preparedness, or other ways to help like encourage self-care and, empowerment through community wellness. And then, of course, all of those things in disaster response come together to be free clinics and education and care packs and care stations, maybe free classes and other things like that. And, I guess in the end, all of that comes down to relationships and building relationships with the people in our communities. And so for disaster relief, that's one area that I think that this is a big time of year. Again, I guess every time of year lately is a big time of year for disasters in how things have evolved over the last few years. But we have hurricanes and floods, tornadoes, forest fires, flash flooding. That's been the last few weeks. We've had a lot of flash flooding. And we, a lot of times we're looking to like, well, what do we have and how can we respond? And as herbalists, I have people come to me saying either, yes, I am a clinical herbalist and I'm ready to go. How do I help me start a free clinic? But we also hear a lot of people coming and saying, you know what, I'm not a clinician, but I really want to help my community. And how do I get started too? And so some of that is that kind of assessment of what are the skills of the people, what are your strengths, what is the area that you really love? Do you like working with youth? Are you going to create a youth garden and then work with young moms to teach them, how to use herbal medicine and their children? And that's just as impactful as having a free clinic could be as well. And having goals also, and kind of looking at what your long-term goals are, and maybe starting with one way to engage community and build the interest in the local community, get more people involved, and then as you grow, look to adding more different types of models that you could use in your community. And a lot of this then also builds to that being ready in advance. I often get those phone calls if something happens and oh my gosh, I don't have any power, electricity, or water, but I really want to do something. Which we've all been there. I've been there too, like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready, but it happened. If we look at these types of things as building blocks. We're building our castle, of community. And as we build each block, education and growing and seed saving and a seed library and all of these different elements that we do, we're building resilience so that when something happens, we have a distributed supply source through different community members. We have the ability to say, well, I don't have any power or water right now, but this person in the next town over does. We've already connected, we know each other, and we have a plan. Those phone trees we used to have. I was probably dating myself, the phone trees when you would call the next person and then the next person and the next person. And that's kind of what I see us as is like forming wheel, the spokes of a wheel that go out and connect community after community so that depending on the scale of the need, that we're all, responding and reacting as we move out and supporting the person who's in the impact zone. And that, being prepared in advance, that allows us to be able to access all of the tools and resources really well. So one of these things that I've mentioned a few times in our models is self-care stations. And that's a great way. Sometimes people come and say, you know what, I don't have a whole chapter or a group of people. I don't have like a whole team. It would be really hard to do free clinics or, I'm not at a free clinic clinician level yet. So maybe self-care stations. And I found that those are really wonderful for local festivals or events. Or if something has happened recently, one of our chapters, they had a shooting in their community, and she had been hosting youth education and a community garden program through the school. And so when she went to the library and said, hey, can I set up a self-care station? They knew who she was and let her put self-care packs out at the table, where people could come and take one. So that was a way for her to be able to distribute things to people that she might not otherwise have access to. And then also, promote that, there are other types of classes and free activities that she does in the community. And so that's, things like this, they can be manned or unmanned, that like the library where she had it, she first went and was there during a community yoga class at the library. And, people could come up and ask questions, but then it could stay there and people could take what they need. It can be that you do something like at a farmer's market. Sometimes people will have certain types of markets where they donate space to charitable organizations, at least one per market. Let's say I've heard, each market is different, but I know often they will allow to, one different charity to be there without charging each time. So setting up, like I've had in Montana. One of our coordinators did that at farmers markets during some of the smoke and fires that were coming down from California, from Canada, and impacting that area. And so she had like respiratory support and clear breathing teas and chest rubs and things like that, eye bags of chamomile for people to soothe their burning eyes. And then because of that, she was invited to go and make care packs for the first responders and some of the firefighters who were out there. But that was just because, being aware of her by her being out in those public areas was really helpful. Also, like tabling or food events. Often there's like food not bombs. A lot of folks in California, for example, there were a lot of tent cities after some of the fires in areas because people wanted to stay in the region for their kids to be able to at least continue school while their homes were being rebuilt and, things like that. So people were like entire thousands, like 5,000 plus people living in kind of unhoused encampments. So doing things like that where you partner with who's feeding, like a food pantry or something, and doing self-care stations or care packs. One group in Eugene was amazing. They, had something similar to this where they went and had a table where people were being fed and they had their table there and they weren't sure what people would need. So they made a menu and people could pick 3 things out of like the 5 or 6 items based on what their needs were. So, and it would have an explanation and they could look at the menu and then tell them what they wanted based on their own unique needs and get what they wanted and also that element of choice is again empowering to people to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm having, I've been having this cough that won't go away because of all of the smoke and, that's kind of what I need support with. Um, and it's the same with like a lot of refugee support or anywhere where you're working with like instead of working in a clinic where you can see maybe one person an hour if you do abbreviated intakes, maybe you need to see 600 people in an afternoon. Doing care packs or care stations can actually allow you to access 600 people in one day. Free clinics can be set up in a lot of ways. And this is usually what people think of when they think of, kind of Herbalists Without Borders response. And free clinics can be really effective. And they're also, like for me, it was a great way to get more clinical hours and clinical experience with a big variety of needs. I know if you are all studying herbalism, I know in the beginning, often we're doing our friends and family and things like that. So we often get kind of similar case studies or cases that we work with. And free clinics can be an excellent opportunity to be able to work with people from all backgrounds and all kinds of needs and changing seasonal needs. And you can even do like care stations where you have like an abbreviated intake and like shorter in, like not a full clinic, but where you at least do an intake, you hear people's basic health history to make sure that what you have is appropriate, and then have like a themed or abbreviated supplies. It's hard to haul everything that you own out to a free clinic if you're doing it mobile. So for mobile clinics, say you have a, cold and flu season or immune support free clinic, all of the products you bring are related to that. And then you have an abbreviated intake to really target what people's needs are and then work with them that way. And if you do themes, it helps ensure that you have the supplies there, you have enough of what you need, and that you can actually carry it all to like in a mobile situation. And that allows you to, like I said, if you can gain clinical hours, you can get a lot of experience working with a lot of different types of people and needs. I love care packs. That's something I make hundreds every month in our US donation distribution network. I run that for my farm where we intake donations from around the country and then share them out to coordinators because not all of us have the ability to get access to donated supplies. And so I love making care packs. We'll put in based on the need. We have one that's like a refugee or like a migrant undocumented person type of pack, or we will have a cold and flu season immune support pack, or lately we've had some back to school and suicide prevention for teens care packs. That's what this was. It had an uplifting inhaler It had a sachet that was all like stars and moons of lavender. It had a flower essence. And then see the little breathe in, breathe out. It's like a fidget spinner kind of thing, but where it's like rough. So you run your thumb over, breathe in, breathe out, hold for 3 seconds, breathe in, things like that. So you could run your fingers over that. I also made a batch recently that had uplifting messages like, you can do it, you're worth it, self-care is, important, kind of things like that. And that, it can be anything really that you can put in a care pack. I've even seen, we were distributing a few years ago after the migrant caravan had made it to Tijuana. Someone had hand donated St. John's wort oil, and it hand stitched these ribbons on it that said "You are loved" in Spanish on every single bottle, which was A, absolutely gorgeous, and B, it showed people that, people cared for them, and that in recognizing that, worth and value in the people who are there. So, like I mentioned, our US donation network, what we do is we do it as a shared system that's a reciprocity based kind of mutual aid network. Um, Supplies come in. We have supplies coming from really large, like supplement companies or herbal companies that are national, but we also have supplies coming in from small businesses, grower like farmers who are actually herb farms, things like that. They come in, and then we have a system where people can request what they need, and then it gets out to them. We also include recipes, e-guides that will have like what I call make and take, where it'll tell you, you literally, if you get a make and take kit for, let's say, how to blend an herbal tea, you'll get the 4 types of herbs, you'll get a sheet that explains the instructions of blending, you'll get a sheet that talks about the actions and energetics and the herbal components of each ingredient. And then you have maybe a few recipes, but you could literally just lay everything out on the table. You'll get the bags, you get the gloves, and everyone then can just learn how to make an herbal tea. Or, we've had folks do things like bone broth or fire cider days or elderberry syrup days where people go and work together, like at a local food pantry that has a commercial kitchen, and teach people how to make that. And then they can take stuff home. So some of these things, it's like, even requesting herbs, essential oils. I actually have pallets in my garage right now that I haven't unloaded. In all of this, again, if we're looking at, building long-term resilience, I got myself tongue twisted there for a minute. It's really about it being beyond immediate relief and looking to sustainable systems. And, as I'm a permaculture designer also, and it's not only about the garden in permaculture, it's also about kind of creating models that are, that reduce waste, that optimize inputs, that create a loop, that, are regenerative and are produce more than what you put in. And that's really what all of this is too, is that we're looking at creating regenerative systems that create more value, more education, more resources, more tools, more support for your community, so that it is regenerative and your community ends up being better than it was when you found it. And a lot of that comes down to also really looking at, like, how do we develop ourselves as leaders? And, you know, leadership can be one of those words where, it's also about being an ally, being a partner, being a collaborator, but also leadership of how we handle ourselves and how we work in communities to build these systems in a way that honors different people, different experiences, different backgrounds, and that's culturally relevant and sensitive to the types of communities that we are a part of or that we work with as well. And that's where HWB, a lot of what we do, we look at the mutual aid, but we also look at, how can we build community partnerships, resilience hubs in different areas. We have webinars. So many people are doing great webinars on the herbs themselves. What we focus on in our webinar series is how to make community models, how to actually do this community work and build systems, how to teach people, how to get involved and how to work with other community allies to create systems that get people to participate and help build better, more resilient communities. Also mentorship opportunities. And that's something that I'm excited to talk about as well in a moment. So for me, the key takeaways are really that health justice requires grassroots engagement and that coordinators be empowered with tools and resources. Coordinators meaning anyone who works in their community, that is doing this work, kind of coordinating and facilitating. That community resilience grows through education and access and empowerment, and that we all have a role in fostering equity and equitable access in our communities. And, basically that we all can do more to support everyone in our community. And we don't have to support every single person. I know some people are like, oh my gosh, there's so much. But, we start where we are with what we have and the people that we know and build from there. And by doing it, starting like that, we're building community and we're building collaboration and we're creating more resilient systems that work. So for you, to be involved with HWB, we do have all these different levels of membership. And what happens is when people join, they get access to our member portal with all of our amazing resources, but then they can also form a chapter, clinic, or project. And we have people, a chapter is more like if you want to have all of your community come together and you might have a clinic and self-care stations and a garden, that's kind of like all encompassing, but you're open to other folks. We have some folks who are clinicians and they want to have like a free clinic once a month that's a branch off of their paid clinic that is all free for anyone to come. And so those, groups, they will often create just a clinic, a standalone clinic where they will hold those. Maybe it's every Friday. They will open up the day to all, free support and get free, all the donated supplies and work with community that way. And then we also have projects. We have folks, we have this one, it's an amazing store. It's a little shop, a team of folks. They have a garden outside their store in the urban sidewalk area. They have a mutual aid shelf where anyone in the community that is in need can come and take anything off of the shelf. And that's just a small business that wants to be able to give back to community and do something while they also see that they have the privilege of having their space, their store, so they're able to dedicate a shelf and, do some of the work. They do sliding scale. They do free events every month as well. So, I mean, it can happen in so many different ways, is what I'm trying to show, that there are a lot of different ways that people can work in their communities. And for us also, people can give back by, we have different members that will donate into our system if they have extra, like, if you have 20 pounds of Tulsi and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to use 20, we have folks, donate in their extra. We also have what we call core volunteers, where people can gain volunteer hours through helping us with some of our office admin work. We have the Without Borders magazine. We have people even helping me coordinate donation and donated supplies that we need and finding different resources, putting together our e-guides, translating labels into Spanish or other languages. We're going to be working right now on a new program where we're going to be translating a prenatal and postnatal mom care guide into Spanish that we are going to be sharing to folks that are working in Tijuana. And so there's a lot of things like that that we always welcome people stepping in and volunteering with. Um, and, I think that it's so rewarding to me. That's why I've been volunteering for so many years, to see the impact that we can make in our communities and also use our skills. That's what I love about the US Donation Network too. When I was just doing my own like clinical practice, you work with so many clients a week, but I'm making hundreds and hundreds of things every week. And it's really amazing, to be able to actually put all of the skills to use, in making things and looking at what you have and addressing specific needs. And that comes down also to the, some of that mentorship. And that is something that I'm really excited that we're going to be working with ACHS on, is creating mentorship opportunities within Herbalists Without Borders for people who are interested in gaining more clinical experience through our free clinics and our chapter programs of, people in different areas that do host free clinics, as well as through some of the community herbalism work that we do, so that people can gain experience and in a volunteering situation where they get hours. We also are going to be having clinical roundtable, and Judith will be presenting a case study for us with that as well. I'm excited, but where people can come in and hear case studies from different perspectives of herbalism, with different clinicians coming in as guests and bringing their case study. So maybe I think our first one is going to be on autoimmune support, and someone who specifically works just with inflammation and autoimmune disease. And so, having different clinicians from all different backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, and is just going to be absolutely incredible. And it benefits all of us, so that when we go out into our communities, we have that many more hours of contemplating really what might work for people. So for coordinators, I always have people ask about, how do you become a coordinator? People join as a member and then form a local chapter, clinic, or project. If you want to see if there is a chapter in your area, you can go on the website and look around and see what is there. For people who are interested in volunteering with the Corps, though, we even do online things. So if you're somewhere where you're like, oh, I'm not near anybody, um, you know, I always welcome folks doing things online. We do a lot of things. We have Zoho, but we also do a lot of things in Google Docs and in Canva, because we're always working to make things accessible to everyone, and we all can access online, which is the amazing part of modern technology. Um, and so also, we need help with, webinar support or resources and things like that. We're going to be hosting a trauma training for 3 months coming up as well. And so people can, um, do all of that type of work while also gaining experience. And for menteeship, we're going to have some of that coming up towards the beginning of the year. We're going to have some come, hang out in a call, ask questions, and get an introduction to the program when it launches. So keep an ear out for that. I know ACHS is also going to be announcing that information as we get closer. Um, but a lot of that, will be kind of working with me and different people in our program who are experienced clinicians. And then also being able to access, the seed grants, technical assistance, our US donation network, or if outside of the US, kind of connecting to other regional hubs, so that we can get access to the supplies we need, so that we can all do, the type of community outreach that we want to focus on. We even have an Herb Scout program that has been in the works with one of our coordinators, who does a lot of youth education, because that's our future of herbalists, right? If we get people interested when they're young and see that as a viable opportunity, and a way to take care of their health and of their family. And for free clinics, it's, if you join and your chapter local to you does have free clinics, often they will be open to people volunteering. Usually you're not a clinician in the beginning, often people maybe will pass out intakes or do different types of work. And then when, when the person who's organizing, either they can oversee people who are looking to gain clinical hours, or if you already have, then, once they get to know you, then they often will set up clinics so that there's more than one practitioner. And it's really, amazing. I volunteered with the Veterans Resiliency Holistic Clinic with Herbalists Without Borders for a long time. And what was amazing about that is it wasn't only an herbal clinic, and there's so many opportunities with holistic wellness. We had, nutritional folks there. We had yoga for warriors. We had a mindfulness meditation. We had nada acupuncture. There was somatic experiencing, craniosacral therapy, and different people. And then, of course, aromatherapy and herbalism. And, for the veterans to be able to come in and experience like all of these different modalities, be able to pick and choose what they want and, kind of decide what works for them. And also be able to come and hang out for a whole day, rather than having people come in and sit and wait for the herbalist, depending on how many clinicians there are, people might sit and wait. And that would give people the chance to go and try different things. Which was just really incredible. And then, even with that, when COVID hit, I was still working with all of our veterans for years still online via Zoom. And, they were still implementing and maintaining some of those practices that they learned during the in-person. We were still hosting like Zoom meditations and yoga for warriors, but it was just really incredible to see how impactful it was on people over years. So with things like that, I always say, be open to different, maybe an acupuncturist or a massage therapist or different folks coming together to create something really interesting. And we call it holistic, right? Which means whole body, our body, mind, and our spirit, all of those things working together and giving people tools to take care of themselves is really amazing. I loved working with veterans as well. A couple of them, like in the beginning, there was no way they were going to put their toes in a lavender foot soak because it was not their thing. But once they experienced it, it was one of those things where it was just foot soaks are the most amazing thing ever, you know. And that's really a wonderful way to experience working with people in like working with people who have never tried things before too. It's always interesting. When you join as a member, one of the great things with HWB, and this is where you could also volunteer if you're interested in the future, we have e-guides for every webinar. We have downloadables and things like that. And we make compilations so that if people are working in their community and are like, someone just said I can hold a class next Thursday. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, have a make and take chest rub day and then request supplies and print this out and you're ready to go. We have all different kinds of things like that. And, also translating things into other languages is amazing. And then our US donation network. I'm in South Central Wisconsin, so I welcome volunteers here directly into my farm here where we grow herbs for HWB, but we also then actually put together a lot of these things and make translated labels and distribute all of these products. But even we always encourage folks to do this in their own countries and have worked to have people recreate models similar to that in each country because it is so expensive to ship outside of the US. Although if you are in like in Canada along the border or Mexico, things like that, we still do ship often to PO boxes and things, and people will drive them. And we do work on mutual aid training just because, and like I said, like people go to school and you're learning about herbalism itself. And what we look at is the community model part. We fill in, those areas of how do I volunteer? How do I work in my community? How do I teach classes to people? How do, and we try to go over like, aromatherapy for herbalists. We had some amazing donations of essential oils, and a lot of herbalists hadn't had experience with that yet. We just had one on ear seeds because that's a non-invasive, modality that can be really easily implemented in a free clinic situation where people can do something. And so we work on like those, filling in those gaps of like, how do you actually create and work on this in your country and your neighborhood and your community? And then we have our magazine. It's free. So we have a lot of that, how to create community models where you are. That's a lot of what the magazine's about. Also, if you'd like to submit articles, we always welcome submissions. Even if you're a student, writing about your experiences, writing about your favorite plant, reviewing a book that you read, all of those things we welcome that. And anyone who has an article in our magazine gets a free quarter page ad. But we always, and we try to put all of this about how to create community clinics. We even had a whole insert on how to do like summer, for summer heat for unhoused folks, for example. So that was a little bit of everything. I know that's a lot. I know I'm going to go to questions next. If you're interested in forming a chapter, we've even had student chapters where people get together and host like different types of community events under their school. So, even if you're just kind of interested in for the future, maybe after you're done, go ahead and you can scan that. We also have it on our website. Um, and I'm going to go and close my share here so that I can see if we have questions. But I just want to say these pictures, the pictures that I had there, um, my screen just did, I clicked the button too fast. But all of the photos are photos from all of our coordinators and all of our chapters and people around the world. And I love seeing the pictures more than anything because I'm always so inspired. So that's why I love having lots of pictures in presentations too, so you can all see them. Oh, did it say unavailable? Oh my gosh. Okay. That must have been me. Of course I did that. Let me get this. Yes. Are there questions too while I'm getting that?
Yes. Oh gosh. Can you hear me, Denise? I don't know what happened to
Yeah.
my video. Okay. I'm trying to find my video again, but in the meantime, there was a question. And first, just thank you so much for all of this information. It's always one of those, there's so much that you go through. I don't even know where to start. It is all wonderful. The global opportunities are amazing. Really just bringing the community of herbalists together around the world. It's truly something that is just it's heartwarming, and it's tapping into the healer inside, right? People really want to help others and help them feel better. So
Exactly.
so I appreciate all of that. Um, and so I am suspecting that this one question that came in was possibly from someone inside the US. The question was, if you set up a self-care station, do you still need the licenses needed to sell products?
What we look to with Herbalists Without Borders, and that's why we have people join, because in the US, joining under a 501(c)(3), you're protected by the Volunteer Protection Act. You're automatically under our general liability insurance. And we always recommend people follow best practices and GMPs internally to make sure that's what we do here. We have a dedicated space and a kitchen space where things are made and labeled, follow labeling laws. But there may be with self-care stations, depending on where you're distributing them, they may require that you only do things that are topical or external. And then that if you have anything that's internal, like a syrup or tea, that it is a donation from a professional company where it was manufactured using, the licensing. Other states have basically cottage food laws that allow people to make items. So yes, it depends on what state you're in. My state, for example, has an exemption for 501(c)(3) nonprofits because otherwise they couldn't sell cookies for church bake sales. I know that that's kind of like a lot of states have exemptions for that reason. Um, for general self-care stations, no, we do make sure, what I do recommend is always clearly label everything, follow the labeling laws. I always lot and batch. I have, lot and batch numbers for everything that is made, and I have the book that has all of that. If it is like like say if you're partnering with an unhoused shelter, they will often say, please no internal use until they get to know you or know that what you bring and what you make or what has been donated is appropriate for the people that you're serving. I also look at things like oh, thanks, Sherry. Sherry is here, and I'm so glad she is. That's great. I was trying to load the manual too, but it was taking a moment. But, I always do really look at what the cottage food laws are in each state and then ensure that we're meeting those criteria. But, one thing that is like we have donations coming in from groups that, where they do have that. So you could have all prepared, like we get tinctures donated from some large tincture companies. Even Mountain Rose Herbs will donate herbs. And so, if we know that there's a specific area where they're like, you know what, we want to make sure our liability is usually what they say, we want to have everything only come in like in sealed packaging that was commercially produced. And that's fine. We'll do that. Inhalers and things like that, that's external. So they usually don't have any problem with that. Um, but it really does depend on who you're partnering with, their level of knowledge also in that, and where you're distributing something, if that makes sense.
So yeah,
At a high school. Ooh, that's a good idea.
we've got folks here. I checked through from Uganda and the UK.
Hmm.
There's one in Italy, and she was asking how to get connected uh, to the folks there.
Oh, yes. Karen Makosi she's been a coordinator for a long time in Italy. And she had taken a break as a coordinator because she was mostly traveling. She's amazing, though. She's written 3 books in Italian and in German because she's from Tyrol. And she teaches in a monastery in northern Italy, which is my dream to go and stay there for a week and take her class. And she keeps last year I was in Italy and we just missed because there was massive flooding and I didn't get to go. I was so sad. But if you email me programs at hwbglobal.org, I can connect you to her. She's incredible, and she teaches. And we also, if you're farther south, there's a member that's also in the Rome area. He does like plant walks and different types of teaching as well. He's amazing.
So, okay, you've answered some of these questions. And yes, Sherry, who I had the pleasure of meeting recently at the
Yes,
International
you
Herb
guys.
Symposium, so wonderful. So she is in the chat answering some questions as well. She's the support team here for Denise as well.
Yes, yay.
So we've got her here, and then you here, you're getting the preview because ACHS, we are partnering with Herbalists Without
Mhm,
Borders to give our students opportunities to connect with herbalists around the country. And so, again, one of those things that makes Herbalists Without Borders so unique and so special is that they are everywhere. So, whether you're in an urban environment, a suburban, a rural area, there are ways to connect. And so,
mhm.
um, Denise is currently getting everything ready, right? So
Yes.
it's still in development. So she is going to be taking names of folks who are interested.
Mhm,
And so when those opportunities come up, where she'll be doing some Q&A for questions that you have and how to be able to connect and hosting those either later this year or early in the new year. So,
mhm,
so just stay connected. You're more than welcome to reach out to me as well. But we will be making more announcements and we'll be sending out more information. So just stay tuned. Everything is in development, so just hang tight. We are working on everything. We're super excited to be able to connect you here in the States and abroad as well. And so someone's
mhm.
asking, for example, if you have a chapter in Trinidad or Tobago.
Actually, I have a coordinator that I worked with. She was my assistant editor for the magazine, and she is going to be coming back. She was on a break due to family health issues. And I'm actually like writing to her. Are you back? So yes, I have someone to connect you to. I know that it's really amazing because she uses almost everything that she can forage there because it's so expensive to have things shipped. And obviously, culturally, it's all a lot of herbalism in your areas and food, and the recipes that she shared always look incredible. So that's what I want more of, recipes, like hot pots and things like that.
Anyone in Japan?
We do have a couple members in Japan, actually, and she had volunteered after Hurricane Katrina, actually, in New Orleans. As you can tell, I have a photographic memory, so I'm going to tell you if you ask me if there's someone, I'll tell you where they live and what they do. But that's that was like my secret, that's my secret power, is I love connecting people. So if you are in an area or you're looking for someone who does a specific kind of work or outreach and you want to connect to other people doing that, I love connecting people. That's kind of what I do. And so yes, a lot of that is like who is out there. And in Japan, we do have several members. I'm actually going to Japan in probably March, and I'm really excited. I'm going to go and check out a few schools and say hi and visit people. So it'll be incredible.
Wonderful. Wow, what a great opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got folks everywhere. Gosh, somebody else chimed in. They're in Pakistan. So
Pakistan.
yeah, so I think we're able to expand, and one of the beautiful things about herbal medicine in general is we are all over the world, right? And there
Hmm.
is what I find just this really beautiful desire to connect and to help
Yeah.
and to figure out, okay, I've got this, okay, I need some of that. Can we figure out how to help and
Yeah.
support each other? And it's such a beautiful part of being connected to herbal medicine and herbalism around the world. So, Denise, I
Exactly.
just want to thank you so much. This opportunity for our students, for the folks that we're able to help. It's a blessing and it's an honor. Thank you so much for being here and sharing
Yeah.
all of
Thank
your
you.
expertise and experiences with us. And so we will stay in touch and we'll keep the students informed. And so just so everyone is aware, we will be sending out an email with this recording, with the slides, with some more information so that you can stay in touch and continue to keep supporting your communities wherever you may be. So thank you again. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy
Well,
the
thank
rest of your
you.
day.
And thanks, everybody.